You're listening to Beyond the Label, a raw, real-life look at living with disabilities. The views and comments expressed in this podcast are not necessarily those of the AMAA or our sponsors. Thanks for listening.
Welcome to Beyond the Label, a raw, real-life look at living with disabilities. Presented by the Adaptive Martial Arts Association, the nation's leading resource and support network for the adaptive martial arts community. Check them out at adaptivemartialarts.org. Breaking barriers, one move at a time.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Beyond the Label. I'm JD.
I'm Charlie Murphy, and we're joined today by Jennifer Getty. Now, Jennifer is, tell us a little bit about yourself, Jennifer. I know that you are a racer, were a racer, you currently are racing. Tell us what you're doing.
I was racing. I raced for about 9 years. I didn't start till I was like 30. And now I'm not racing anymore.
Okay. Now you were born with a disability?
Yes, I was born missing my right hand.
This is a topic that's near and dear to me. My family raced since I was about 9 years old till I was 14 at the local dirt track here, and I just ate it up. And we'll get into that in a few minutes. But just want to send a shout out to Justin St. Louis for kind of introducing us. Justin is a jack of all trades over there at the Devil's Bowl Speedway, and he's become a good friend of mine. And I said, Justin, we do this awareness podcast, and I really want to bring on somebody with a disability that's driven. I mean, we've had conversations about this before, and it's kind of like, it's one of those topics like you're like, boy, I'd like to do it, but I'm not quite sure it's possible. And he says, well, I know some folks that have done it, blah, blah, blah. And so he said, well, can you connect me up with somebody so we could talk about this? And so that's how you got here, Jennifer, tonight. And we appreciate you being here.
Great. Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah. So your disability is the formal name of that? Is that congenital amputeeism? Is that what that's called?
I think it would be more congenital birth defect,
okay,
because I was born like that, no amputation or anything like that.
Growing up, probably you were a lot like me in the fact that because you were born with your disability, and I have cerebral palsy, by the way, but because you were born with your disability, it tended to be, the adaptations that you needed and things like that tended to be normal. Am I correct in that?
Yes.
And so how did you get this racing bug? Because I know once you get the bug, it's something you don't ever
Right.
get rid of.
When we were younger, my dad drove the pace car. So I started going to the races every week. And then once we got to the age where we could be in the pits, then we could ride with him and just kind of fell in love with the sport.
What was your family's reaction when you said, "Hey, I think I want to drive a race car"?
So it was kind of funny. We were my husband and I at the time, well, he's still my husband, not at the time, but at the time this conversation happened, we were at the races watching, and I just said, oh, I really would love to race. And he said, okay, so go ahead and do it. And I was like, oh, all right. And I just took the ball and ran with it. So that's kind of how just a conversation.
So now growing up for you, what was growing up like? I mean, for me, my family didn't really pay too much attention to the disability. My friends didn't pay too much attention. This guy forgets I have a disability all the time. He'll help me up the stairs. I'm like, we're not going anywhere unless you give me those crutches back. What? Is that unless you do that on purpose? Do you do that on purpose?
I'm just trying to get you to, work a little harder. That's all.
I see how you are. But anyway, back to the question at hand. So how was life growing up for you?
Growing up was good. My parents were really supportive. They really never made it an issue ever. And I had an awesome pediatrician, and he always just used to tell my mom, you have to let her do it. You have to let her do it herself. And my mom and my grandma, I remember the story of trying to tie my shoes, and my grandmother wanting to help, and my mom saying, no, Mom, you can't help her. You have to let her do it herself. And you just adapt. You just learn. I mean, it's different than losing a limb, I think, because then you have to learn everything a second time. Whereas when you're born this way, you just do everything as you go.
Did you ever have a prosthetic, or do you use
did.
one?
And I think
Okay.
that's more the disability than not, because I could do so much. So I'm fortunate that my arm is long, and like, so I don't know, you can see I have my elbow.
Okay.
So I have like total function besides really just not having a hand. And so I can pretty much, I mean, I've never really had an issue with anything. Sometimes it might take a little extra thinking to figure it out, but then you put that on and it's like, oh, now what do I do with this thing, you
Yeah.
know?
Right. Right. Okay.
So it's definitely like, I would call that more the handicap than.
Now, I've not driven a race car, and I'm not sure how they're set up, but I would think there would be some shifting involved. Am I not
Yes.
correct?
So I've always been able to drive a stick shift anyways, like even in general, my regular cars, most often when I was younger, were standard shift, but the race car, what we did, because in a race seat, you have your harness, so you're like stuck against your seat. You can't really be leaning at all forward. So we had the shifter adapted. We had it brought forward, so like lengthened, so that
Huh?
when I was in the car, my arm could reach it just fine. That was really the only thing that we had to make different, to change in the car.
And you raced at Thunder Road up here in Vermont, correct?
Yes. Yep.
So you were a tire driver. Have you ever experienced dirt at all?
No, I do think dirt would be more challenging with one hand for sure.
Well, that's kind of why I brought up that question, because dirt is a whole different
Yeah.
ball game. So, I've got to ask you, just as the elephant in the room. So you're like, hey, I want to drive a race car. Your husband's like, sure, go ahead. When you brought that idea to the track, what sort of barriers did you face, if any?
I don't think I faced any, really. People were really supportive, and everybody was really always pretty awesome about wanting to lend a hand, answer questions. But really, I don't think, and it didn't ever really come down to my disability at all. I think I got treated just like anyone coming in would get treated, and it was, everybody's really great.
So did they have again, I'm not an auto
That's
racer.
okay.
I've never done it. I don't know anything about it. I see they do a lot of left turns and go fast. But I would imagine your vehicle has to be inspected
Yes.
prior to running. So I mean, did they say anything about the way you had it modified to fit your abilities, or?
Nope. I
Mhm.
think the biggest concern just was making sure that I could get out of the car easily,
Right. Okay.
and like making sure my window net would be easy enough to get down with one hand, making sure I could get my steering wheel off, because, if you have a fire or something in your car, and I've even rolled my car over. And I would say that was a little challenging because I was hanging upside down. And like most times they'll tell you, put your hands over your head, and then they'll undo your belt. So you're holding yourself up, so when
Okay.
you don't fall out of the seat, like onto the roof of the car. So that was the one thing that they were really awesome about, was like trying to help me so that I didn't get hurt trying to climb out. And everything was fine. But I think those are like the safety concerns would be the biggest. And that's mostly
Sure.
getting out in a hurry.
So first of all, we've got to clear something up right here, right now. Will you tell him you do more than go fast and turn left? There's more to it than that. Will you
There
tell
is a
him?
little bit more to it than that.
Well, is it a figure eight?
No, it's just,
Well, then you're going, yeah, you're right, circles, right? I mean,
yeah, I think you probably should get in one and try it out.
It's-
But not
I
alone. I mean, you need to be in the middle of a pack of cars to really get the experience.
yeah, no, I like go-karts is where but yeah, that's about my limit would be the go-kart.
So somehow, if Justin can work up an education for Charlie somehow, some way, we'd appreciate it. Justin, if you're watching this, help us out again, will you, buddy?
See, the figure eight, that intrigues me, because that's scary. That's you're crossing traffic. That's a big
Yeah,
deal.
I
You
would.
gotta
I
time
don't know if
that.
I would enjoy that so much.
That's just crazy. Is what that is.
That's just crazy. Yeah, that's timing. That's
So again, I mean, so you hop in the car for the first time, right? You've been around racing for a while. You hop in the car for the first time. You've got butterflies like every other driver. How are those butterflies magnified with knowing? I mean, it's no secret. I mean, you and I we're kind of down on some extremities here, and and when you're going like that, at those speeds, you probably need all you can get. I mean, was there ever a time where you were just like, what am
Yeah.
I doing?
Yeah. So right in the beginning, my very first car, for one thing, did not have power steering. And that is like incredibly difficult. I mean, and I'm not like a big person, so it's not like I have like these awesome muscles. So when you're trying to wheel a car with no power steering, it's really, really tough. My very first time out, they pretty much black flagged me for going too slow. So and you feel like you're flying. I felt like I was like cruising out there, but I obviously was not. And they black flagged me, and I brought it in, and they said, you're going too slow. And I said, okay, so can I go back out? And they said, yes, but I didn't. I brought it back to the pit. And of course, like a girl, I choked up a little bit and was like, I can't do this. But, we just we went back the next race, and we just kept going. And eventually we built a new car, and we added power steering. And that made a huge difference.
and what kind of vehicle were you racing?
Ford Mustang.
Okay. Was it a certain year, or what motor
It
was
was
in
like
it?
a 93, I think, or a 94, the old Fox body. So it's a 4-cylinder,
Oh, okay.
but they're rear-wheel drive. And so I think some of the challenges in even driving didn't even have to do with having one hand, was just trying to figure out how not to turn myself around on the track all the time.
Okay.
It was
Well,
American.
that's one of my questions here, Jennifer, is, how much did having the disability impact your driving ability, and then how much of it was just racing, as we say? I mean, it's just racing.
I would say probably 99% of it is just racing. I honestly don't feel it like a disability. I've never felt like that. And I don't know. I guess I can't really say differently because I don't know any different. I don't know like what it would have been like to have two hands and race and then race with one, but I felt learning the car and learning that part of it was much more challenging than figuring out how to do it. I really just got in and went. And that's just what you do.
Yeah, Charlie, what do you think? We'll take a little bit of a break and then come back on the other side and learn a little bit more about this?
Sure. You're listening to Beyond the Label. It's a raw, real-life look at living with disabilities presented by Adaptive Martial Arts Association, the nation's leading resource and support network for the adaptive martial arts community. AdaptiveMartialArts.org, breaking barriers one move at a time. Right back here with Jennifer Getty on Beyond the Label.
Beyond the Label, presented by the Adaptive Martial Arts Association, the nation's leading resource and support network for the adaptive martial arts community.
It's no secret, every martial artist, no matter their age, dreams of becoming a legend. Having their name listed among the greats like Bruce Lee, Chuck Norris, and Jackie Chan. You can hide it or deny it, but you know it's true. Being a legend takes raw talent, dedication, big breaks, and an ability to survive a roller coaster called fame. But it also takes one more thing to go with it: the best gear and equipment in the world. From the company that is martial arts, Century Martial Arts. They aren't just another martial arts supplier that's never set foot on a mat. They are martial artists, and that means they know their products and use what they sell. From uniforms and training gear to weapons and equipment, Century has it all for every martial arts style. Although you may never be listed among the greats, you can still shop like one at CenturyMartialArts.com and unleash your legend within. Century Martial Arts, the world leader in martial arts since 1976.
You're listening to Beyond the Label, a raw, real-life look at living with disabilities, presented by the Adaptive Martial Arts Association. Check them out at adaptivemartialarts.org.
And we're back beyond the label, a raw, real-life look at living with disabilities. I'm Charlie Murphy.
I'm JD.
And we're here with Jennifer Getty. And Jason, I know you had a couple questions you wanted to ask Jennifer.
Yeah, Jennifer, I know that racing for me and just being around racing in my teenage years, that had a pretty big impact for me. How did it help you?
It helped me more as an adult because of course I didn't really get into racing myself until I was about 30. And I'm 43, almost 44 now. So I've been out of it for a couple years. But it really helped. Like, I was pretty self-conscious about having one hand. When I was younger, if you saw me at the track, you probably would see that I walked around and I would have like a sweatshirt draped over my arm. It was one of those things, self-consciously I would do it. I didn't even always realize it, but it's just the way it was. And racing just brought a lot of confidence that I wouldn't have had otherwise, and the support that even the fans and my fellow racers gave me, that I felt really just so much more like I didn't feel like I needed to hide it. I felt like it kind of made me more of the person that I was. It gave me a really special fan base, I think, of people that really cared and supported. And so it just, I don't know, it made me feel so much more comfortable about just being me and not, covering it up and trying to hide it. And it kind of made, like, it's hard to explain, but like racing was kind of a pretty big accomplishment, I think. And I think a lot of people were just, I don't know, so supportive of it that it really just kind of brought me out of my shell. Not that I wasn't like a people person anyways, but as far as just my feeling comfortable with people seeing that I had one hand, it really made a big difference.
Most definitely. And I think for me, racing impacted me because, as I said, growing up as a teenager, and a little bit before that, so I was in a wheelchair until I was 11, and that was the first time I'd ever had to even think about having surgery, and it was major surgery, and it was like, I had learning disabilities that went with the physical, and so math and reading and all that stuff was not my bag. And they're like, how come you know everything there is to know about a race car, and you could tear a motor apart and you can put it back together, but you don't know math? And I said, because I don't care about that. I'm like, racing's life. That's what's important. And I think racing, I'm glad we were in racing around the time of the surgery, because at 11 years old, when you have to have a surgery and you've never done that before, I mean, that was a selling point to me. My brothers are like, dude, we know you don't want to have it, but you want to be able to work on the race car better and do those things. And I'm like, well, yeah. Then they're like, well, you got to have the surgery. And so, that was the thing. I mean, growing up, even before the surgery, when we worked on the race car, it was something we did together as a family. We all hopped in the car on a Saturday night and headed for the track, and they always were able to find a way for me to be included in what was going on. And I can remember when I was a kid, I'd go out and play, and I had the wheelchair at the time, and my mother's like, okay, well, I'm going to be in the house here doing whatever. Don't get into any trouble, and don't get near those race cars. I'm like, no, Mom, I'm good. I won't. And the next thing you knew, I was out of the wheelchair, got myself up into the trailer, up into the race car, and I was just living my dream right there in the backyard of being a race car driver. And she's like, how'd you get in there? And I'm like, because I wanted to. But you can't make your bed, but you can get in there.
Right.
Well, yeah, it's racing. So it was really impactful for me, and it allowed me to understand that I didn't have to learn like everybody else, and that I could be valuable with the things that I did know and the talents that I did have. So everybody sees it as, going fast and turning left, right, Charlie?
Yeah.
But
bottom line, right? I mean, that's it, right?
But I think that there is, when you're really into it and you see the track camaraderie and the family aspect of it, there's really there's way more than people can even see on the surface.
So
Yeah.
I got a question. So now, growing up, I'm a dozen years your senior, but I remember growing up
He's an old guy, is what he's trying to say.
pretty much. Um, but growing up, I don't remember there being any left-handed scissors in school. Okay, so we're growing up in at the time in a basically in a two-handed
Mhm.
person world. And what were some of the biggest challenges that you had growing up? What would be the one thing that you could say that you weren't able to do because of your disability?
Hmm.
Is there any one thing that you just kind of like, ah, really?
Handstand.
Awesome. Okay.
I mean, I really, I mean, no, honestly, I really can't think of anything. But what I can tell you, what frustrates me now in this world
Uh-huh.
are the pepper and salt shakers in restaurants that are grinders, where you have to twist the damn. Okay, that is the most frustrating thing in the world, and it drives me nuts. It really does. And my mother-in-law bought me these really awesome ones they're grinders, but they're like tall and skinny, so you can take them with you and you can just push the button on them and it
Oh,
grinds.
okay.
And I never remember to bring them with me. And then you go in and you're like, come on, because then you have to sit there and try to like I'm trying to like use my arm to like hold the top from like and try to turn the bottom. And it's just, and that's embarrassing because like even like if you don't want to show your arm, which I don't like to make a big production out of it, but you're like up on the table, you've got it over the table. You're like, everybody can see that. It's like, oh my God, this is so embarrassing. So I'd have to say handstands and salt and pepper shakers.
Okay. All right. Fair enough.
Every time I see a pepper grinder now, I'm going to think of Jennifer.
You're going to think of me.
Well, you know, if you go to those fancier places, they come over and they do that for you. See,
You're right. I'll have to
the
get
ones
a-
the ones that I frequent all the time.
Okay.
Yeah,
Because we're so wealthy that we can afford to go to restaurants with a
so
pepper grinder guy.
so that actually leads me into another good question though for you is as somebody with a disability. I mean, I know, right? So you're in a public place, right? And everybody is like, as much as they're trying not to, they're like
Right.
trying to peek at you to see what's going on, right? And my feeling on it is, if you want to know, just come out and ask me. Just say, hey, why do you have those crutches, or why are you in that wheelchair?
Yes.
Don't stare at me. I mean, like the little kids, I mean, I think it's the cutest thing when they stare, but there's a point where you're just like, okay, like you're a 47-year-old man, like let's just man up and just say, what do you got going on? I mean,
yeah.
How do you feel about that? And what are some of your experiences with that?
Yeah, I think that's true. But, a lot of times it's little kids, and I'm always like, little kids will actually, most of the time they're pretty unfiltered, and they'll ask you, they'll be like, what happened to your hand or something? And I love talking to them. I love to be able to tell them because I really want them to feel comfortable. Like when my children, I have two boys, they're 15, almost 16, and then an 18-year-old. But when they were little, I would go to their classrooms and talk with their friends and I would bring my prosthetic arm to show them and show how that works and like explain it. And I did that for both of them when they were little, because I figured they're going to grow up with these kids. I want these kids to be comfortable around me. I don't want anyone to feel like uncomfortable. And I know parents sometimes are like totally, it mortifies them if their kid comes out and asks you, but I would much rather them ask and be able to explain it to them than to have them either scared of me or just, too shy to ask, not to want to come around. I'm pretty open about it. So,
and I think that's kind of our job as as individuals with disabilities. It's like that's our job to educate the community about what we have, and that's half the reason we do this podcast. So I couldn't help but hear you mention that you have a couple of sons. They seem to be driving age. Any aspirations to be a race car driver there?
They mention it from time to time. My husband's like, I burned him out. He's burnt out. Like he was so ready for me to be done when this whole like thing was over. And So I don't think the kids, it's not happening. I had to wait till I was 30. So I guess if they're, when they're ready, they can do it on their own.
Yeah, you just got to have a midlife crisis to get these things
Yeah,
done,
exactly.
Now, see, I
Then
think
you have
if
another one.
yeah, there you go. Now, so what do you drive now?
I have a Chevy Equinox.
Well, that's not sporty.
It's got a turbo.
It's not sporty.
Yeah, it's sporty. I got the version that's sporty. I got a midnight black edition, so everything is blacked out. It's got
okay.
It's got a turbo, which means I have to put premium gas in it.
It's got a turbo and she knows how to use it.
Yes, I do.
Nice. Now, see, if I had to have a prosthetic limb, I think like I would have like a really long one that I could reach stuff on, like the high shelves and stuff. Have you got different attachments? Have you got different?
Is the cool part. So, and we're like, we sold our house, so I don't have anything I can even show you. But the prosthetic arm I have, which sadly no longer fits because I got it when I was 21 through the Shriners. But it has awesome attachments. So it has a hand they measure and match your hand exactly. That's literally kind of just like this, and it's just mostly for looks. It doesn't do anything.
Okay.
Then I have one that's just a hook, which I don't know. You can't do much with that really. It just opens and closes,
Okay.
But I have an attachment for playing pool, like at a pool hall, that goes on it. So it's got like a circle and it's got a thing that comes down. So you can set it on the pool table and you can turn that around wherever you want it, put your pool stick through it.
Cool.
I have a golf attachment for holding a golf club, a sports hand, they call it, but it's really like a rubber, it's like this. So you could play volleyball or, whatever, something like that. And a ski pole holder, I think. So I think those were the attachments that I had at the time.
Skill saw?
No.
That would be cool.
So this may sound like a kind of like a simple, stupid question, but so you put the prosthetic on, right?
Yep.
And then how does it actually function? Like, how do you control the movements of that?
So the attachments for this particular one that I had, this last one, didn't really serve a function, like as far as movement goes, like opening and closing or anything like that. It was more, but the attachments were, so when they go on the end of it, they're ready to go. Like you'd put your golf club through the end of it, or you'd use it against the table. They do have ones where you have a strap that goes around your back onto your arm on this side. So it's like a cable. So like if I would push my arm forward, the cable would stretch and like the hand would like open like this.
Oh,
okay. Or the hook would be like that, would open like that. And then they do also have, and I love to tell people about this because, I don't know a lot of people with like missing limbs like this, but they make what they call a myoelectric arm, and it runs on your nerves. And so not everybody can have that function. Like not everybody has the nerve endings in their arm, obviously, but if you test for it, it's really cool. And it works by your like arm. So I don't know, you probably can't see very well, but if I can move my arm like forward a little bit with muscles and back. So when you move it forward, the hand would close. When you moved it back, the hand would open.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but they're super, super expensive. And back when I was at the Shriners, they pay for it. The Shriners are amazing. And they pay for your prosthetics. Like they don't turn you away from that. And they're very expensive, those particular types of, the myoelectric hands. So we opted not to get one because I didn't really enjoy wearing it to begin with. And we didn't want them to pay all that money for something that I probably wouldn't use. Okay. So, but there's really good options. I was a cheerleader in high school for ice hockey, and I had like the hook attached to the pom-pom, and then of course we wore mitt gloves because it was in a ice hockey arena. So I would just put like paper towel in a glove. So the glove would go over the prosthetic arm. when we were doing like clapping and stuff like that. And then for like pom-pom cheers, I would just take the glove off and put the attachment on that had the pom-pom on it. And then I was good to go for that. So I did use it. Like, I'm not saying it's not worth it. And I didn't use it. And I did use it for playing like pool at a pool table and stuff like that. But like I said earlier, that's the really hard part, was putting it on and then figuring out how to use it. So I didn't use it a lot.
Right, because like me, you're used to
Just doing what you have to.
yeah, you just do what you got to, and it may look a little funny while you're doing it, but you can usually get it done, you know. You just got to get past it. That boy, this doesn't look like everybody else, and say, yeah, but at least I'm doing it.
Exactly. Yep.
Can you swim?
Yes.
And walk me through it. I mean, is it just?
I mean, I swim just like everyone else. I mean, I took swimming lessons and I can do like the regular strokes, and you would never know. You would never know.
Awesome. All
yeah.
right. I
can ride a bike. I can jump rope. That's a little bit challenging, but I can do it.
Well, Charlie can't, so you're ahead of him.
I mean, I haven't been working out clearly, but when I do, I have like a yoga block. If you've ever seen those like foam yoga blocks. So if I put that on the floor, I can do push-ups because it makes me level, you know.
Right.
For weights, I buy arm wrap weights, like you could use on your ankles or your, your wrists. And I add, like, most of them don't come with enough weight to really make it. So I always can add weight to it so that I can at least wrap that on my arm. And it's a little more challenging because you're trying to kind of keep it on as good as you can. But the only way to like keep this arm, like, to get the same kind of workout in both arms. And so you just figure it out as you go.
Yeah, nice.
So that's another question. As we talk about workouts and things like that, do you find that the muscles in that limb, do you have to work twice as hard to keep them strengthened?
That arm is like way stronger. I mean, I don't know why, but I mean, when I load up my groceries, I can put like 10 bags on this arm and carry them upstairs. And I can tell you, I will not make a second trip. I mean, I will get them on there. It's just really strong. In school, I'd say, we could arm wrestle, like pull my arm back. It's amazingly strong. I don't know why, if it's because it's like shorter, so it doesn't have like, I can't explain it, but it's very strong.
So I don't have much experience with limb loss or anything like that, but I did have a friend he was actually the mayor of the city of Rutland here in our hometown, and he, like you, was missing a hand, and I never really thought much of it until he went to pat me on the back one day, and he patted me a little harder than he thought he was going to, and I can tell you that killed. Like, that right there is a weapon if you want it to be, for sure.
It is, because in like this arm, this is bone. Their bone goes right to the end of this. When I was little, if my brother would like really start to irritate me, I'd take his leg, like say this is the top of his leg, and I would take my arm and just like right it into his leg. He's like, stop.
Didn't.
Oh no, it's great. It was perfect. And, so I don't know, like it's strong and it's tough. Like it's not like someone's gonna hurt it, I mean, I talk like it's my buddy that's coming along with me, but
right.
No, it's it's some great insight, and I'm glad that you feel comfortable enough talking to us about it and talking with our audience, because I think these are some questions that people have, but they're just too afraid to ask. I mean, and that's what this podcast is all about. So just a couple of more questions for you, and then we'll let you go and think about racing and get your new car ready to hit the track now that you've got the itch again. See, what would you say to somebody that's interested in getting involved in racing? First of all, A, that doesn't have a disability, and B, somebody that has a disability that just says, man, I don't think they're going to let me do it because of XYZ.
I would try. My advice is to always try, because you just never know what you can do, and you might surprise yourself, and for, I mean, anyone in general getting into racing, I love racing. I mean, it's been like a love of mine since I was really young. And if anyone else has that same passion, I say try it. It's if you can manage it. I mean, it does. There is costs involved, and it can be pretty expensive. I was super fortunate. I had really, really good sponsors, so
Well,
that's a big difference.
well, I can tell you the thing that I've been into lately, and I don't know if you've checked it out yet, but it's iRacing. I don't know if you've
Heard of
checked
it?
that
I
out.
have not checked it out.
Yeah, it is like it's the real deal. It's as close as you're gonna get, and it is. I kind of was like, I had a better understanding than Charlie about this. I wasn't, go fast and turn left, but I'm like, oh, it's pretty easy, And
What is it?
what is it? It's a simulator, man. We'll get you set up. We'll start you on the simulator, and then I'll talk to Justin, see what we can do to get you in a real car.
Do you have a steering wheel?
I do.
Okay.
And I actually have a
Gas
steering.
pedal?
Well, it
A
came
gas
with
pedal?
it came with pedals, but
Oh,
mine is
okay.
adapted because remember, Charlie,
Oh yeah, that's right. He's walking with crutches. I keep forgetting. All right.
When
But
there's a
anyway.
will, there's a way.
Well, he has one of those. He has a. What have you got? What year is your Camaro? 70 what?
it's a 85 Chevy
Oh, it's
Camaro.
85 Chevy Camaro, and it's sitting in the garage. It's dirty. It's just dust. I went over there and caked. What is up? He adapted it so that he could drive a thing, and
And then I got old.
Oh yeah, I guess
yeah,
you're really old.
yeah.
That's what happened. Then I got old.
I think, yeah, okay, all right.
Same
I
old
just-
song and dance as everybody else. You know what I mean?
Just wondering if
Um,
you're ever gonna get that thing on the road. That's all.
So anyway, back to iRacing real quick. here.
Okay,
so,
iRacing.
So that you and our listeners and Jennifer have an understanding. So everybody's like, oh, it's just another video game, right? No, this thing is like a simulator. It's as close as you're gonna get to understanding what a race car is like without having a race car. And so I wanted to do it. I was like, hey, this would be pretty cool. They had some dirt modifieds on there. They had asphalt cars like Jennifer drove. I was like, this is pretty good. And I was like, wait a minute. Most of the controllers were set up, for people that could use their feet. And I'm like, well, this isn't going to work. So I searched and searched and searched, and I actually found a controller that allowed me to put the gas and the brake on a couple of butterfly paddles, and so I enjoy that from time to time, and most of the NASCAR drivers use that in the off season, and we've had some dirt drivers use it now. It's pretty cool. So it's called iRacing, and you should check it out. But
Did you put one of those knob things on your steering wheel?
no,
No,
I didn't
he's-
need to.
He's got
Those
one
are
of those
really
in his.
dangerous.
He's got one of those in his car. I think he's got one
Oh.
on his. He has a golf cart too. I don't know if he told you that. He kind of
My
thinks
kids
he's
have one
pretty,
of those, and
pretty
they
hot
love
stuff
driving
in
around.
that.
They're fun.
Did you put one on your golf cart?
I did. I put one on the golf cart, and actually, for me,
Yeah.
because of my disability, I'm allowed to have it.
Yep.
Able-bodied losers like you are not, right? Because
Because he'll
Because
hurt
that-
himself.
that's right. Because that's
Pretty
illegal.
I'm pretty
But-
sure.
So the problem is that if I didn't have the knob, I would get to here, and then that would be as far as I could turn. So with the knob allows
You
me
got
to.
two hands, right? I mean, in your case, you get.
Well, no, because the hand control for the gas and the
Oh,
brake
oh,
are on my
okay.
left hand.
All right. Well, see, I'm learning something new.
And then the
So
the
you-
knob allows me to make the turns.
Gotcha.
Now I
Okay.
can't sit here and lie to you, and I can't sit here and lie to Jennifer and our audience. I can't tell you that me and my buddies on a Friday night haven't had fun just kind of messing around with the hand controls and that knob on the steering wheel, because you can do some pretty mean donuts with that thing, I'll tell you.
He was nowhere near the golf course. He was nowhere near that golf course. That was not him.
It wasn't me, it was the
Okay.
other Jason. Oh boy.
Well, Jennifer, it's been a true pleasure. Thank you for being so open and upfront with us, answering my silly questions, because I don't know.
Silly. They were great questions. I thought they were great questions.
Oh well, thank you, because I mean, it's one of those things where you just my stepdaughter had a best friend of hers. When we were living out in Arizona, they came to visit, and she was missing. Her name was Carol, and she was missing. I think similar to your arm. I think she was born missing the lower half, I guess, of her arm, but she was pretty self-conscious about it. Of course, they were, high school age, and she wore a prosthetic, and I looked at it and I'm like, and as soon as we got out on a boat and we went to go water skiing or whatever, it came right off. So she was, it was just one of those things where she would put it on when she was around people, just because, she wasn't at an age, I guess, where, she was able to wrap her head around and say, hey, this is me, this is who I am. And I
takes
do
a while.
just
Kids
fine.
are mean in school. Like, there's kids are mean. So that doesn't help, as you're growing up.
Sure.
Once you get older and, it changes a lot.
It's so Jennifer, I hope that you've enjoyed the time here as much as we have. It's been fun, and Charlie, you're a good sport. I give you a hard time, but that's because we've worked together for so many years, and the podcast is one of the only times now that I get to razz you in public, and
That's okay.
so I take every
still go
opportunity I
faster than
can. Yeah.
I'm gonna get them to clean up that car, Jennifer, and
Yeah, I think so.
since it sends you some pictures, it's nice. You just gotta
That'd be
needs a
awesome.
little,
I'd love to
needs a
see
little
it.
work.
I'd love to see you in it, driving it. That would be awesome.
There you go. All right.
So another shout out just before we go. Another shout out to my buddy Justin St. Louis for hooking up this interview. Justin, you're awesome. Again, like you said, got to get a hold of you so that Charlie understands that racing's more than turning left and going fast. I mean, like, who even thinks like that?
Hey, rubbing is racing.
I want to be there for that racing debut for you. I got to be there to see that. So make sure you let me know.
I definitely will. We'll stay in touch.
Awesome.
Jennifer, it's a true pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much.
You've been listening to Beyond the Label, a raw, real-life look at living with disabilities, presented by the Adaptive Martial Arts Association, the nation's leading resource and support network for the adaptive martial arts community. AdaptiveMartialArts.org, breaking barriers one move at a time. Well, Jay, that's another one in the can, as they say.
Absolutely, man. This one was fun. As I said, near and dear to my heart. Looking forward to the next one. Thanks for being here. Thanks for putting up with me. And again, thanks for watching Beyond the Label, everybody.
Thanks for listening to Beyond the Label. If you'd like to be a guest on an upcoming episode, email contact@adaptivemartialarts.org. Beyond the Label is produced by JD Production and presented by the Adaptive Martial Arts Association, the nation's leading resource and support network for the adaptive martial arts community. Check them out at adaptivemartialarts.org. Breaking barriers, one move at a time.